Wonderful. Good morning. Today is May 25th. It's a Thursday, and I am speaking to a lady named Tracy. And I heard about Tracy on the podcast called Basement Hangout. This is a podcast that I appeared on. I think that was the first time they interviewed a targeted individual. And then after that, it kind of opened the floodgate. And Tracy was one of the people who contacted these guys, Chad and John, I believe. Yeah, wonderful guys. I mean, the fact that non-TIs give us the platform is a sign of change, that we are no longer a fringe. We are part of the society. Our complaints are valid, scientifically based. There's nothing fringe. There's nothing conspiratorial about it. So things are changing, and I'm happy to have Tracy today with me. Tracy, I consider you an expert in Rife Therapy. This is going to be filed under conversations with experts, because the only time I heard about Rife machine is from Dr. David Nixon. If you know who he is, he lives in Australia. He analyzes the vaccine content. He finds technology in it. He doesn't treat patients anymore because his license was taken away. But nevertheless, I heard about Rife Therapy from Dr. Nixon, and then I heard about it from you, and that piqued my interest. I contacted you, and you were nice to agree to speak to me, and this is what's happening right now. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Likewise. All right, the stage is yours.
All right. So just for perspective, I just wanted to kick us off to show that almost 2 years ago, prior to discovering Rife, I was sleeping with a silver lined hat filled with copper sheets, hooked up to a Dr. Clark's zapper. So I can talk to you about that later, but to give perspective to the level of suffering that I had prior to implementing Rife Therapy, it was pretty significant. So with that being said, I think I'll start off with just a brief introduction to the whole frequency concept, and then I'll go in and talk a little bit about the Rife machine and how it works, followed with a short 5-minute video. And then I'll go in and do just a brief demo of my equipment and show the different device options that one would have. So Nikola Tesla said, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything in the universe has a vibrating frequency, properly called a resonant frequency. So how does a Rife machine work? The theory in plain English can be understood using the analogy of an opera singer who can shatter a crystal glass with her voice. The glass is naturally vibrating at a certain frequency, and when the singer sings a continuous note at that frequency, the glass shatters. In the same way, each microorganism, fungi, bacteria, virus, parasites, mold, etc., has a unique and specific frequency, or a mortal oscillatory rate. When you transmit more of this same frequency to the microorganism, it causes structural stress, and the pathogen is disabled or dies. Rife resonators generate resonance waves that destroy harmful pathogenic organisms without doing any harm to the users. So I thought that was just a really powerful, high-level, explanation of the concept of frequencies. So I think it'd be good just to show, again, a brief, if I could share my screen, a brief 5-minute video that talks about quantum entanglement, so quantum mechanics, which is a good precursor to prior to going into the device that I use.
Absolutely.
So let me share. Okay. I didn't account for the sound because I have my headset on.
Okay, then
But I've got it. I think this will work. Hold on.
all right.
Can you hear that okay?
No, you probably have to change your microphone settings.
Okay, 1 second. Okay.
There's no sound. Maybe you can just read it.
Okay, so quantum mechanics describes how the universe works at the level smaller than atoms, right? So a quantum of energy is a specific amount of energy, and quantum mechanics describes how that energy moves and interacts at the subatomic level. So Albert Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, right? So quantum entanglement means that if any part of a single system is removed from that system to a different location, any action performed on that part will also be instantaneously performed on the parent part and vice versa. The double helix of your DNA functions like an antenna that is still connected to the rest of your DNA. So if you take a piece of your DNA and you remove it from the rest of your DNA, like fingernail or blood, they are on a quantum level still connected. So you can use that DNA sample as long as it is still active to heal the rest of you. Then?
Yeah, I have a question. Why would a fingernail clip-in not contain the entire DNA? Because DNA molecule is rather tiny, and when you have a finger clip-in, how do you know that you just have only a part of your DNA and not the entire DNA? DNA is a molecule, just like any other molecules, and as any other physical object has a resonance. So I don't quite understand the difference between a segment of the DNA and the entire DNA, especially when we don't have a way to measure it. Do you have any comment, Tracy?
I'm not sure I completely understand, but I know that if you, maybe it would help if I go in and do a demonstration of the device. It might help to put things in perspective. So I'll demonstrate mine, but then I think it's important to show the different methods. My device isn't the only option. So this is the one that I purchased, okay? And this is the generator. And this is where this is attached. This is called a remote. This is the generator, this is the remote, and your DNA goes in here. So let me remove it real quick. So you put your DNA sample inside the remote, and then there are all the programming is done by the manufacturer, right, on the device, but it's also hooked up to the computer, and that's where the software runs. And the software has like over 65,000 different protocols built in, and I can share my screen and show that to you in a moment as well. But so basically the premise is that you put your DNA in here, right? And you run the protocols against it. And so whatever it is you're trying to resolve in your person, you run that program on the device using the software, and it applies that same frequency. So for example, you had a headache. I'm generalizing, right? But or you have a headache. You could go in there and you could put your DNA in here, and you could go into the software and select headache, and it will leverage whatever frequency is assigned to headache and address that symptom. I have to be careful about saying, you don't want to say heal, you can't claim that this is, for obvious reasons, right? So in theory, that's how it works. I don't know if that answers your DNA question.
To a point, what I have a question is, if you put a fingernail clipping into that box, in that box, there's not only DNA, there's collagen, there are other structural molecules, there are minerals. How is it? Does the machine have a way of separating the DNA from the other molecules? What is your understanding?
Oh, that's a great question. To be honest, I can't really speak to that level of detail, but that's a great question, because how does it separate it from the tape that is surrounded? They're very particular about the type of tape. It has to be the medical tape for whatever reason. So I'll carefully follow the instructions that I was given, but that's a really good point, how it could distinguish why you wouldn't, just put the DNA directly in there and not the tape, and how does it know? But it does. I can say that the very first time I used this, when I turned it on, it generated a Herx reaction pretty quickly. Herx reaction is when I first purchased this, I purchased it to run the detox protocols. So they have an 11-day detox protocol built in, and it detoxes of heavy metals, parasites, and it runs for 11 days. Well, I kept resetting it. I actually, no, you don't have to reset it. It'll reset itself. So for 11 days, for almost 14 months, I just had that thing running over and over again. But anyway, the first time that I ran it, it generated a Herx reaction, and I had to stop it, temporarily, and take a day off and come back to it. But I had such intense pain at the base of my skull, on the back of my neck. Really, it felt like real stiff neck, and at the base of my skull. And so Herx reaction is, I guess, when I should probably pull up a definition of that, but it's your body saying, this is too much at once, that there's definitely something there, and it's addressing something. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but maybe it's happening too quickly, or it's too much at once. So
very, very, very interesting. This is my first, I will be honest with you, this is my first introduction to Rife Therapy. I heard about it. I don't know the mechanism. What you're explaining from the user perspective is very valuable to me, because now I will be looking for specific things. Would you mind sharing where you got it, how much it cost?
Sure.
How long have you been using it?
Yeah, let me share my screen again, because if I could help one person not make the same, I wouldn't say mistake, but make a better selection, then it'd be all worth it. So, okay, so here's Spooky 2-Mall is where I purchased, or where you can purchase them, and there are four different types of generators, right? So the first one that I have is this XM. Okay. The next level up is the generator X. Okay, which, as you can see, is quite a bit more in cost. But the value of Gen X over the one I have is it doesn't need to be plugged into a laptop. And I just, had I known that or really appreciated the significance of that prior to, investing the $400 on this guy, I definitely would have waited and, gotten the Gen X, because to have your laptop running, for 14 months constantly with the generator on there, it just would have been nice not to have to. Oh, and another advantage of the Gen X is you can do biofeedback scanning, also without having to be plugged into the laptop. So biofeedback scan, if you're familiar with that, okay. So Gen X has the capability of doing that. You can do it with the one that I purchased, XM. You can do biofeedback, but it's clunky. You have to use this little green device, put it on your finger, and you have to be still for like 45 minutes or something to that effect. But the Gen X, you can just select biofeedback and it runs on your DNA. You could be doing whatever, going about your day, and it'll generate automatically for you if you run it.
Is it wearable? Can you just wear it with you, like on the side, or you have to? Does it run on batteries?
The Gen X, I'm not as familiar with the Gen X, but I don't know if you have to have it plugged in or if it runs on batteries. That's a really great question. I can find out and get back to you. But it's important. I'll mention this as well. There are actually a couple different ways of applying the frequencies, and DNA via the remote is one way, but this is also another way. This is cold therapy. So these, when plugged, you can plug these into the generator as well, and you put them in your ears. And again, it's applying frequencies, same protocols. You would select the same protocols and everything. It's just a different method of doing it. So what I did after I got familiar with the device and using it remote, I was in such a bad place when I first purchased it and just desperate to keep the DNA remote going. But then after I did that for several months, I started incorporating the cold laser, and I would turn the DNA, the remote, off 2 hours twice a day, and use this for 2 hours, and then go back and alternate. So again, just to recap, so that's XM, and then there's Gen X. Well, then just to take it a step further, there's the portable. I can't speak to this because I don't have $3,000 to invest in it, but this is, from what I hear, is a pretty powerful setup, and it takes your blood. You can do blood plasma in these devices here. I can send you a link and you can go and familiarize yourself with it. But then finally, Scalar. Scalar is another one where it leverages that Gen X as a generator, but people who are have really significant conditions, they will sleep with these scalar boxes on both sides of their bed, for example, and run those scalar waves all night, and they have just a really powerful effect on that condition that it's going after. Okay.
That's all very interesting. I first of all, I want to make a disclaimer that I'm not endorsing any of these machines. I have never used it. I'm well aware how target individuals are financially stranded, and I have not used the device. I'm very hesitant to recommend any devices, because what might work for some people might not work for others. So I am learning, just as all my listeners that are with us right now.
Yeah.
I am I am familiar with scalar waves, and I'm familiar with the way they differ from longitudinal, not longitudinal, either other scalar waves, transverse waves, and officially, we don't know how to make scalar waves. So, is this some kind of technological breakthrough that actually creates scalar waves? Because you can't find that any of they recognize the existence of them, but officially we don't know how to make them. Perhaps some military secret technology has solved this problem, but as far as the public science, the publicly available literature, I don't think that we are that we have this acknowledgement that we can make scalar waves, and you understand the difference between scalar waves and longitudinal waves and transverse waves. They're quite different. What you correctly call them Tesla waves, and they do exist, but we don't know how to make them. That is that gives me a little pause. What do you think about that, Tracy?
To be honest, I haven't done much discovery on the scalar treatment, simply because it just I think it was more than what I haven't researched the scalar, to be honest. I think secondary to applying the healing frequencies and the protocols that are designated, I think the advantage for me, and I'm sorry, this isn't going to address your question, but it's sort of along the same lines. But for me, I felt like I was interfering with the frequencies in my environment that was causing me harm, and I think I felt like it interfered, and it chopped things up a bit. I know that kind of sounds, as a TI, that's frequencies is a big, something we battle with on a daily basis. And I felt like this gave me an advantage because I felt like it was putting, breaking up whatever frequencies were causing me harm in my environment. But as far as scalar goes, I'm sorry, I just haven't researched it enough.
I understand. Do you think? I mean, you listed several during your interview on Basement Hangout podcast. You listed several modalities that you performed. You were talking about hot bath, and that you were watching this black goo collecting on the bottom of your tub. But mostly I was impressed with the fact that you claim the Rife Therapy is what really made the difference. So do you still consider yourself a targeted individual?
I think what I'm dealing with today is one of two things: either residual effect of what I was exposed to, what I experienced, or I am connected to something, because a few days after I did that podcast, I completed the sound therapy, that I did. I talked about the CD that I purchased, or that David Case developed. Okay, so this was a 3-week trial, and at the time I did the podcast, I was 3 days away from completing that 3-week trial. Well, sure enough, I completed it, and then the first night that I did not use this, I woke up the next morning and my symptoms were slowly coming back. They haven't returned to the degree that they were before. I did go back to sleep, so I'm sleeping with this at night. If I sleep with this at night, then during the day, my symptoms are very minor. But prior to using this, and quite consistently for more than a year, what I dealt with was something that was attaching to the left side of my head and ear. I mean, it sounded like an AM, like an old AM radio, ring, you know, and it would come in like a banshee, and it would attach or, you know, connect. And then my symptoms, I would have my feeling energy in my head, and they would last for like 3 to 4 days, and then it would stop, go about 2 days, come back again. And it would wake, I mean, it could happen it could happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. It could happen when I'm driving a conference call at work. It could happen when I'm driving a car, you know, but again, it comes on as though it's like something that's, you know, tuning in. And I have 3 days of hell, excuse me. And then it'll fade away, and I get a couple days of relief, and it comes back. It's methodically. It's almost like it was systematically happening. So, you know, but as far as my targeting goes, I was targeted very, very heavily. I'm getting ready to do another podcast with Emma Catherine at the Imagination podcast. And she's incredible. And I'm going to tell the whole story. You know, the basement hangout, the guys are amazing. And I'm so appreciative of them and that opportunity. I think if I would have gone through my whole story end to end, it would have been too much, and it wasn't really the right, you know, forum to do that. But what they gave me is a gift, you know, so I can leverage that and take it to Emma Catherine and expand and tell the whole story. So.
Please don't take it personally. I do not want to diminish anyone's experience. Everybody's experience is different. We have commonalities, and then we have differences, and that's probably because the programs that have been run on us are different. That if our speculation is correct that we are experimental subjects, then they run different experiments, and so we have commonalities, and then we have differences. Are you familiar with Havana Syndrome?
From what I've learned through you, yes, and then what I've read with the Cuban, you know, incident. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself that you might have Havana Syndrome as described in the literature? Because we do have literature about these Cuban diplomats. The main cohort of the diplomats, the 25 people that they can't attribute their brain damage to anything else but directed pulse microwave energy, is that original cohort from medevac from Cuba, and then there were some similar cases in China and other countries. But the core 25 people, that they have pretty much similar symptoms, and that's how the Havana Syndrome was described and diagnosed, and this is how I was diagnosed. Would you consider yourself having Havana Syndrome, or is it something different?
My symptoms have evolved since they started, but I can tell you that when it first started, and this spanned for probably, it started in March, April of 2020, and went on up until May of 2021. It was absolutely, I would describe it as that. It was absolutely the most horrific. I mean, it had me, I went to 18 different cities and states back and forth across the country. And I even left and went to Costa Rica because I did some research and saw that they didn't have 5G, because at the time I thought it was 5G. But it was absolutely horrific. Yeah, very painful. I mean, I would clench my teeth, you know, like grind my teeth. The energy was like unbelievable. It would be difficult for me to even have a conversation with somebody and keep myself calm because it was really, really incredible for a very long time, and I don't know if, well, I mentioned this in the podcast, what kicked this off for me, I believe, was an EEG and an fMRI of my brain. EEG is capturing brain waves. So that's a person's unique DNA. No two people have the same brainwave signature, right? So they did an EEG of my brain, and then they did an fMRI, which is brain mapping. And within weeks after those tests is when it began. And when it began, I mean, I had to get relief. I would pull the blanket off of the bed in the hotel. I would pull it into the bathroom, shut the door, and turn on the hot shower because the condensation would, I would lift my head up off the pillow and it would create like spark. And even more recently, since I've been here, so I moved here in September of 2021. I woke up, I have the pictures. I woke up and I had blood on my pillow. It had to only came from my ear, it didn't come from my skin or anything like that. So to your point a moment ago, or your question, I've done a lot since May 2021. And then when I got this Rife machine in February of 2022, it has been an absolute daily battle. Daily battle. And if I didn't have I am so fortunate, so blessed to have the job that I have where I can work from home. And it has been every single day doing something aggressive to get to the side. And I don't know, maybe I need to create a blog or something and do a better job of, I know I just put that list together for the basement hangout rather quickly, but maybe I could do a better job of articulating my journey, because it's been very rough. I'm sorry, as you know, and you sort of alluded to this on your interview, it's so horrific that you kind of just want to check out. And if I adopted my son when he was a baby, as a single mom, and I'm all he has. So I always had his face, in front of me to keep going for him, because if something happened to me, he would have nobody, so.
I have a question about these specific symptoms that Havana Syndrome patients have. When they get those active aggressive attacks, they including myself, they get very much out of balance. The sense of disequilibrium is just so noticeable, and then it stays with you, and you compensate it with your vision, but your vestibular organs are damaged permanently. So that's why, and that's one of the criteria to how you can be diagnosed with Havana syndrome, among other things. Now we know more about it than clinicians want to allude, but they do know how to diagnose this condition, and it's been around in the military medicine for a while. It's nothing new. It just they call it UBI, unconventionally acquired brain injury, but it's directed energy, and this diagnosis does not exist in civilian medicine, which is because really nobody's supposed to apply military grade neuroweapons to civilians, but nevertheless, when they do, that's the diagnosis we should be getting. So have you made any efforts to verify your condition, to get diagnosed, to see what's going on with your brain, There are white matter tracks that get changed, the vestibular organs that get changed. There's specific pattern of cognitive changes. There are ways to diagnose your condition and sort of verify it. Have you thought about it?
I had a choice with the limited amount of funds that I had to either take my health in my own, on my own, or invest it into this health system, which the health system sort of put me on this path, I believe. So no, I haven't gone back. I don't have insurance. I don't have health insurance, and it would have been quite costly for me to do that. That being said, I did try to find a research institute, like a place that might be doing research on, brain studies or whatever. And I thought about maybe doing something like that at one point, but I never pursued it. I felt like, like I said, as part of my targeting, my finances were wiped. And so when I finally secured employment again, every paycheck that I had went to healing myself.
Right.
Yeah. I liked your you put some material. I don't know if it was an interview or a blog where you did the contrast of Havana Syndrome versus electrical sensitivity, electromagnetic sensitivity, and hypersensitivity. Yeah, because and I think that maybe my symptoms probably mirror that of electrical hypersensitivity more than Havana, because I for I want to say at least 18 months, like I thought it was coming from like I couldn't work, close to monitors. I thought that it was coming from the monitors. I was actually causing power outages too in my environment, consistently. So it wasn't a fluke. So it happened in Kentucky, it happened in Illinois, it happened in Colorado. I stayed at a EMF Sensitivity Institute, research institute in Colorado for a few weeks, and it happened there. So for whatever, I don't understand why that would happen, but it did. Oh, I would plug things into a power strip, to dry my hair, and I'd turn on the dryer and blow out the whole power strip. So one thing I'll add that I've always wondered if there was a connection in my mind is the timing of when the CIA came out with the Havana, the revelation of the Havana Syndrome, coincided with, didn't it coincide with COVID somehow, or around that time, as well as
it preceded COVID.
And then do you know much about the resonant spikes, the spikes in the Schumann resonance that
Yes.
I find that, and then talks of UFO disclosures. I don't know. I don't want to get into the conspiracy stuff, but the timing.
We can get into multiple conversations. I would really stay on top. I would really like this topic, because we can just
right
venture out and spend another 3 hours talking about what's going on and what the relationship it has with what's going on with us. I really appreciate, Tracy, you coming on and explaining. I will now have some general understanding of what Rife is. You showed me the machine, you showed me where to find it. I will look into the principle, but thank you very much for coming in and explaining your experience. If you would like to tell our audience anything else from your personal perspective, any advice, any word of wisdom, please do.
Okay. One thing, did you want me to show the software on my monitor? The screen? Sure. Okay.
Yes.
And of course, okay, give me just 1 second and share my screen.
Okay.
All right. And it's okay. So this is give me just 1 second. It's not behaving, of course. I think it's because of the Zoom running, maybe the memory. But this is basically here on the left side is, let me go back. These are all the conditions where I mentioned there are 65,000 protocols built in. So this is the home screen. If I click on detox, which again, I think there we go, detox. I mentioned I use laser and then remote. So I'm going to click in remote. And then excuse me, the terrain. Give me just, okay. And then down here, this is where all the, I mentioned, the metals and the chemicals and system toxins and parasites and all of that. So again, it's an 11-day, it runs for 11 days and then it repeats. And then, and one other thing that's really great about this protocol is it kills the parasites in the order that they need to be taken care of. And if you don't do it properly, if you don't cleanse and detox properly, you can get rid of parasites. And then eggs, can come back and the cycle repeats itself. So there's something about this technology where it actually takes care of things in the proper order. But if I go back up here, just to give you a quick view of the magnitude. So I'm going to click on DH experimental frequencies and remote. It's really slow. And then here, we've got all of these. I mean, the opportunities are endless here of things that you can address. So I just wanted to show this to you and
Thank you. Tracy, I have a question for you. Have you looked into any of the validation studies, properly done, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies with this machine? Are they available? Have you looked into them?
To show outcomes, measurable outcomes?
Yes, measurable outcomes, some kind of, proof of concept, placebo-controlled studies that we can say, it's definitely working beyond, within the p-value that indicates that it's more than a placebo effect.
Mm-hmm. Dr. John White might have some of that. I can take a look and see if I can get my hands on any data.
If you would like to send it to me, I will include it in the description of the video.
Okay.
We're almost out of time. Would you like to say anything else to targeted individuals out there who are listening to this show?
Just, you gotta take, our health into our own hands. You've got to be, I'd be willing to help, if anybody wants to reach out to me via my email, I can provide that to you, Lynn, if you want to put it in the notes. But, just stay strong. And it's a battle, but one of the things that I had to tell myself early on was, nobody's gonna save you. We've got to save ourselves. We got to do what works for us and keep looking for the solution, because and to your point earlier, what works for one person may not work for another. But we need to support each other, and I'm here to help in any way I can, and share my journey with anybody that wants it.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy, for this message of optimism and hope. And I like your attitude. You're looking for a solution, and looks like you have found one for yourself. And we'll let our listeners decide whether it is suitable to them or not. And thank you for being a resource for the community. I will post everything you send me in the description. And have a wonderful day. Very nice meeting you and very nice talking to you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you as well.